Hi, welcome to our think piece on gamification and learning by PWhite. One of the problems that we've always faced with students, particularly first year students, is engagement or the lack thereof. And anecdotally, students often complain about the subject's relevance to them. And this can be just the way in which they view the subject, the relevance, or the way they see the relevance to what they're trying to study. It can be the content, because they may not understand the content and where it fits in what they're trying to do. It may be the delivery, and the method of delivery could be adding to their lack of engagement, or it might be they're just not interested. And so part of our problem here is to try and figure out what are the problems that we can do, the ways we can approach this to resolve some of these issues. And some of the ways and the parts of these issues that may well determine it could be the method we use to deliver our subject content, and also the means that we use to generate interest in that content. And so we have to ask ourselves, is this the student's view of what we're delivering? Are we putting up the things we might want to do? Is we might want to bring in incentives. And so one of the things I'm doing is using a thing called the mulligan. Now, this was originally proposed by Lisa Pavia-Hegel as a reward for discussion, improvement, and mastery of content. And so I started using it in 2014 in the 60 session in my database management systems class, ITC 114, to increase the extremely low levels of engagement that we had in the subject. And of course, the subject being fairly theoretical for the first part of it was quite difficult for people to become engaged in. And so what I did was I started to say, okay, we can swap mulligans. We can award you mulligans for things you do in class, and you can swap these for marks on your assignments, and up to a maximum of 5. Right? And so this immediately caught people's interest, and engagement started to increase immediately. And the one thing I didn't expect, although I possibly should have in retrospect, was this increase in competitiveness amongst students in order to win the mulligan. So, of course, that meant that after the first 1 or 2 sessions where I was starting to hand out mulligans, I started to become very aware of the needs of those students who were less competitive. So this will also. So I extended that then to an online quiz, and so I started to use a program called Socrative.com. And Socrative allows me to run an online interactive quiz at any time during a lecture. And of course, this works both with face-to-face and with distance ed. So the students would access the quiz through their laptop, tablet, or phone, and would give them the login details before the lecture, of course. And then as we go through, which in the next slide I'll show you, it'll point out which is the quiz number that they need to access. However, make sure if you intend to use this, you've also got a separate device so that you can run Socrative and check the results. Just a small thing. But when we ran this in the 2015-60 session in database management systems, we suddenly had a participation rate of around about 90%. The other people who didn't participate were those who didn't have a device, or didn't bring a device with them to class, or for some reason didn't want to. And so ultimately we started to look at producing paper copies for those who didn't want to bring a device or didn't want to access it online. So the mulligans were awarded for results, but you must ensure that you set the criteria for awards first, and that students clearly understand what the criteria is. The very worst thing that can happen is arguing about, whether somebody has met the criteria in class. That needs to be clearly stated right up front. And as I said, it works quite well with the DE cohort. It's just you change the system. So this is where we start to ask the more complex questions that didn't fit into this multiple choice format. And so I would start to run this as an end of class quiz. And when I initially ran this, what we found was the participation rate was fairly slow. So I started then awarding mulligans at the start of the following class. Then what people realized is that if mulligans are still being awarded, then perhaps we should get involved in this. So the participation rate increased to around about 50%. So what we find, though, is the more reserved students, the students who sit there in the class and appear not to be terribly involved, are just taking notes, they're not reacting, they're not talking, they're not answering questions. These are the guys who put in the slow quizzes, and these are the guys who we really got much better engagement from, and actually scored in many cases a greater number of mulligans. So it's a matter of checking the way in which people work, and it's probably going to be different for every class that you run. So the lessons we learnt from this is that the ludic loop, particularly in the Socrative quizzes, drives competitiveness. And the ludic loop, for those who are not quite sure, comes from gaming theory, not games theory, but gaming theory, where as you work through a game and start to work up levels, the more you win, the more you want to keep winning and you keep going. So this is the ludic loop. We also have a virtual currency, which is the mulligans, and that drives engagement because they see some value in having an ability to store some points against blowing things in the assignment. And everybody worries about, as many of the students have said to me, I'm worried about not being able to get it right in the assignment. So this gives me some sort of backup. I've got 5 points there that I might be able to swing the deal for me. And so this changes the student's view and the interest in the subject. But of course, you've always got to team it with relevant content, and you must put it in at an appropriate point. And so this is where we are at the moment. But where do we want to go? Do we want to start to play and learn? And possibly this might be the solution for the future. Because in our future directions, what I'm starting to look at is, do we design subject assignments as a game? Do we build this together as a game? So how would we work this? Possibly you're going to look at a case study type problem, and you're going to look at something that's pretty realistic, something that people would find in real life. Having described that, you would then do the assignments as a laddered type assignment. So one assignment's going to lead to the next, and next, and next. It becomes that ladder that people start to work up. And this then sets you up to be able to build further learning into the assignments. As if people get to a certain stage and not sure how to go on, then perhaps they can start to branch off to one side, do a bit of additional learning as part of that game, and come back into it and continue to complete that assignment. You might also start to think about allowing different exit points. And exit points here can be the way in which you grade skills on achieving different levels. So if a person only achieves, say, level 1 or level 2, you might grade them as a pass. But level 3 or 4 could be graded as a credit, and so on. And so if people are achieving different levels in this, then this may well be the way in which you grade it. However, the critical thing here is, do we think about leaderboards? Is a leaderboard worth considering? Leaderboards are used in lots of games, and in games, some of the major games, such as World of Warfare. There are massive leaderboards which talk about how people would show people where they are in relation to other people. Our engagement really requires us to start asking, what will engage your students? Would a reward, a virtual currency work here? How will you use that to engage the students, and will that be effective? When will you use it? Will you engage your students at what stage in your subject? And you need to have some innovation, some innovative approach to applying this type of thinking. You can't just pick up something that somebody else has done and say, yeah, that'll work. It's got to be looked at in the context of what you're trying to deliver. Now, Catherine Herbert and I have spent a lot of time talking and working around this, and we've found here that the learning is really in the reflection and the detailed discussion afterwards about the structures, methods, and outcomes. And both of us are quite happy to talk to any of you, to anybody, about some of this and the way in which we've found that it works. But ultimately, we believe that the future of engagement may well lie in gamifying both learning and the application of skills. And it could well be that assessments could become related to moving up a level in a work skill code. I hope you found this interesting. It's an area that could be quite intriguing, and I look forward to your discussions. If you want to contact me, please email me. My address is there, or Kath Herbert at her address there. Thank you very much.